Oh, our Lord, we start in your name, and we ask that you would bless this gathering. We ask that you would make our hearts sincere in being here tonight. We ask that you would pour your unconditional love and kindness upon us, and that you would heal every wound, and that you would guide every thought, that you would bless every breath, and that you would enable us to speak about this important topic that your Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all your prophets have spoken about, and that we would reflect those teachings and share some of those teachings and imbibe some of those teachings and be able to implement those teachings today and going forward from this night. Thank you so much for choosing this topic. Thank you to the organizers for choosing this topic of arrogance. It's a very important topic to discuss, and it's something that we are directed to pay attention to by the last apostle, the apostle of God, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He drew our attention to this topic. He drew our attention to this sickness, this disease of the heart, and spoke to us in very clear terms about the consequences of keeping this quality of arrogance in oneself and not making an effort to remove it and not seeking healing from this particular illness. When he told us, when he teaches us in the teaching in which he says that a person who has even an iota, an atom's weight, even a tiny amount of arrogance in their heart will not be able to enter to the abode of peace, the final place of paradise. And the abode of peace even in this life. That keeping even a small amount, keeping even a small amount of this feeling of arrogance, feeling that you're better than other people, will prevent you from existing in an abode of peace. And that abode of peace we understand to be the presence of God. And we also know from a teaching of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may God continue to nourish his soul and his spirit and our connection to him, that he says, that God says about pride, about majesty, that this is a cloak that belongs to God himself. And then anybody else who tries to wear this cloak of superiority, of grandeur, of greatness, with respect to other people, will have it stripped from them by God himself. It doesn't belong to us to play a role of feeling superior or in a high position vis-a-vis any other human being. It's not our right to step into such a role. That is not our place. So all of this discussion about arrogance is to remind ourselves of our place. And the best way to heal from this sickness is exactly what is being alluded to in actually both of these teachings, pointed to, directed to, which is that this is about God. And if you want to be in the presence of God, then you need to accept that only God is God. And that you have no claim and no entitlement to grandeur. You are supposed to be living in a relationship or in a state that is defined by who you are with respect to God, first and foremost. And when you can get that right, then who you are with other people will fall into place. Because if you recognize that the great is God, and it stops there, then you won't fall into ever thinking of yourself as greater than other people. So this is a very important means for us to actually approach God, is to be willing to shed those traces of a superiority complex or thinking of ourselves as being better than other people. One of the scholars, Imam al-Haddad, the scholars and the engineers of helping people fix their hearts and heal their hearts and prepare their hearts to be in the presence of God, he talks about this, this attitude of arrogance, and how, if there's anybody in this room, if there's anybody who enters a masjid or a room or a place of congregation thinking that they're better than the other people in that room, then they ought to step out and come back in a different mood, in a different mode. So many of us, the way we hold ourselves in the world, it's a default that we think that we're better than other people. It's just our default. That's how we exist. We're troubled sometimes when we see someone who's better than us, because it challenges this default position that we've taken, that I'm surely, the best. I know what I'm talking about. I've got it together. And of course that is an illusion, and it's a blessing when we have challenges to that. It's a sign that God wants to help us to emerge out of that illusion. So the first thing they always say about any kind of problem or any kind of sickness is that 90% of the healing is in recognizing that you need to heal. Right? So it's an uncomfortable thing to think about oneself as having arrogance, but if we think about, again, the teaching of the Prophet, all it takes is one iota. You don't have to be walking around treating other people like garbage. You don't have to be walking around acting like Pharaoh. All you need is just one iota, and you've got the same problem that, the one that the Prophet is talking about, that needs to be taken care of. So, arrogance manifests itself in so many different ways, and one of the things that we've been asked to talk about today is how it manifests in terms of religiosity, how it manifests in terms of religious attitudes within a community. And there are so many ways that arrogance can manifest. We often refer to this kind of arrogance as self-righteousness. When somebody has a holier-than-thou attitude, that's another way to refer to it, that because they learned a few things about religion, because they were blessed with the capacity from God to be able to practice, to implement some of the beautiful ways of the Prophet, that instead of getting the blessing from that, which is to feel humbled and appreciative and grateful towards God, what they got instead is that they turned their gaze towards other people rather than keeping their gaze on God or turning their gaze fully to God. And when they looked at other people, what they saw in other people was that you're not able to do the things I can do. Therefore, you're less than me. And this is how arrogance is grown in that situation. That's how it's nourished until it becomes this significant barrier between people, as a block between people, an obstacle, and also a barrier in one's own spiritual journey. So I'm sure we've all met people who we think have a problem. But also, perhaps, if we're honest, we're able to recognize that we've behaved in that way at times in our life. At times in our life, we've been the one to look down on other people because they couldn't do or say or achieve or believe in the things that we were able to and that we perhaps take for granted. So it's a common human sickness. And whenever we talk about these things like arrogance, pride, envy, it's like I said, it's really important that we think about ourselves first and foremost, and that we recognize that everybody has the same raw material in them, and that sometimes what we see in other people is actually just a reflection of what we have inside ourselves, and that's why we're so bothered by what we see in other people, because it hits home. It reminds us of what we ourselves suffer from. So, in terms of a community, in terms of a group and the religious identity and how arrogance can manifest, we were asked to talk about the issue of extremism and how arrogance is at the root of what's going on when people take an extreme position. And there's much to be said about that, but we want to approach it with a compassionate eye. That's what we were talking about. And the compassion, the ability to see someone or see an issue with a compassionate eye, it can only come from your willingness to actually see yourself in the other person. To not other that other person. To not assume that you are looking at a specimen that's on display and you have the right to analyze and then perhaps even cut up that specimen in order to make your analysis, in order to come to your conclusions. We all have the same seeds in us. We're all made up of the same material by God Most High. We have a soul, we have a spirit, we all have also an ego. And your ego is no different than my ego. Every human being has the same material. And it is this ego that, it's in the place of the ego, it's in the location of the ego that these issues such as arrogance breathe and grow, like mold, growing, just spreading. And we all have that same interior condition that's inside us, because mold, as you know, grows in dark places. And we all have the capacity for that our inner landscape become dark. Everybody has that potential. The only difference between somebody who's illuminated and not suffering from this mold of arrogance or envy or jealousy or self-admiration and somebody who's suffering from it, the only difference is the degree to which the first person is exposed him or herself to the light of the Prophet, the light of God. So there's no need to actually turn somebody else's arrogance into a reason for your arrogance towards them. You have to be careful. We're not here to be judges sitting in a courtroom talking about the accused. That's very important. Otherwise, we shouldn't call it compassionate eye. We can just call it, let's cut people to pieces, which we do sometimes. We have to start this with a sense of rahmah, with a sense of unconditional compassion and caring and concern for ourselves and for all lives as our own. So I just wanted to give that as the introduction, to get you thinking, to get you reflecting, to make sure that as you hear this talk, you engage your own spirit, and you don't just engage your intellect to speak about something other than your own self. None of us will truly benefit from these minutes and maybe hour that we spend here unless we're willing to make it part of our own journey towards our Creator. And whether we like it or not, we're making our way there, one way or the other. One cannot stop that. Each moment that goes by, we come closer to the final meeting. And we can make these moments an investment in the beauty that that meeting will be, and the joy that that meeting could be, or we can just turn it into a distraction. And one way or the other, we're getting closer. So may we make these moments blessed and meaningful. May we be willing to turn the lens on our own selves as we discuss this topic.
Alhamdulillah, may Allah bless you. Bless the speaker, bless the listener, bless those who are present here. Bless us all. Open our hearts to truly receive and learn. Yes, indeed, we did not come to learn about sort of aliens, arrogant people, but our own selves. We came to learn about our own selves and to learn about our own sicknesses in order for us to get healed. We came to heal, and head forward. And that's the journey. We did not come to waste our time. We did not come to consume a talk. We came to a meeting point in order for us to continue walking the walk together. Walk in the prophetic paradigm. Talks like this and events like this one are part of a prophetic strategy, a prophetic tool, prophetic instrument, in order for us to get something bigger. If I tell you, what is a prophetic project? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send the prophets? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the prophets, and the answer we find it in the revelation, to build a personality. And that's the Islamic project. The Islamic project is not to build a state, a political state. The Islamic project, or the prophetic, the Muhammadan project, same the project of Isa before him, alayhi salam, the project of Musa. Even though some people want to make us understand that the project of Musa was to take his people from a land to a promised land and then to govern that land. No, he never said that. And they never said that, the first people of Musa alayhi salam. And some people today, they want us to believe that the project of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was to build a big Islamic empire to govern people. That was never the project of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Islamic project, what we can call Islamic project, is to build that healthy personality. The healthy personality. You are the Islamic project. I am the Islamic project. Each one of us is the project of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are not our own project. We are the project of God. And the one who is entrusted with that project is not you again. It is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You are but an instrument to realize your own project. Yeah? In that project, which is your personality. So we cannot shape our personalities the way we want. And we cannot let our personalities get shaped by default. We cannot allow that. We will be judged if we do that. And that's why. We have to really be careful and use what God has given us, or better than use, invest. Invest. Invest what God has given us. Thinking, the power of thinking, the power of meditating, the power of criticizing, the power of seeing, the power of hearing, all these powers, the power of desiring, the power of motivation, the power of passion, all these powers, we need to use them, we need to invest them in order to build that healthy personality within us. To build that healthy personality within us. And that personality we call the Islamic personality, or the Muhammadan personality, or again, the Zakiyya, the personality, the pure, the purified and the healed personality. So, the project of God is you, and you are an instrument in that project. You are the one who will give the choice, who will make the choice, will give the decision, whether you go right or left, whether you take that job seriously or you neglect it. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. That's the whole thing about it, and this is but a summary of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us in the Quran. So you have the choice whether to take the job seriously or neglect it. As a worker, again, it's not your project, it is the project of God, and you are not the you are not the reference. You are not the reference number one for that job. It's Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is entrusted with to be the architect, to be the architect, to be the builder of the arch within you. So that's from where the word architect came, by the way. The religion is the builder of the arch. The arch was the first thing that was built. Architecture. It is to build the arch of Noah, alayhi salam. So we have the arch within you. You need to build that arch within you to save you from your own floods, from your own flood and destruction. That flood, who was building that arch? Noah, the prophet. Then the arch within you is entrusted to the Prophet to build. The Prophet, the ark, the ark within you. The ark within you is entrusted to the prophets to build, not to yourself. They are the architects. They are the engineers. You are a worker. You are a worker and you have to take that work seriously. So the Islamic project is about building this healthy personality that responds to the call of God and responds to the need of its time. That's La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. A healthy personality that is based on La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. A vertical relationship and a horizontal relationship. La ilaha illallah, a transcendent relationship with God, responding to the call of God, and Muhammadun Rasulullah, doing the work of God. That's Rasulullah, the messenger of God. Finding the messenger of God within you and be a messenger of God and be a helper, be a healer. Walking on earth with the shoes, or walking on earth following the footsteps of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the healthy personality, the Islamic personality that the prophets came to forge, to build, is that personality that responds to the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly, and responds to the need of its time. In order for us to have that personality and build that personality, we need at least two things. We need two things. To facilitate the building of that personality, we need conferences like this one to shift the paradigm, because we need to continuously shift the paradigm. Because if we do not shift the paradigm, it is the satanic paradigm that will dominate. We need to keep stirring. We need to keep fighting, and that's the fight. That's the fight of the intellect. That's the fight of the intellect. We need to continuously shift paradigms, or in other terms, we need to continuously fight in the battle, or in the battlefield of consciousness. We need to continuously remind ourselves. Otherwise, if we sleep, if we allow our intellect to sleep, by default it is the satanic paradigm that will dominate, that will take over. The satanic paradigm, who can summarize the satanic paradigm in one sentence? From the audience. Who can summarize the satanic paradigm in one sentence? The satanic paradigm is summarized in one sentence: I am better than him. That is the satanic paradigm. So the true Satanism, or Satanism, the true Satanism is not just to go and worship these weird people just dressed in black and, and putting tattoos, and most of the times they are very cool, nice people actually. Seriously, I worked with them. I still work with some of them. I work with them, and most of the time they are people, they're just children just looking for adventure or something like that. And sometimes they surprise you with a level of compassion you do not find with people, level of humanity you do not find with people who are praying with you in the same masjid. So the true Satanist people, the true Satanism is to have that paradigm, or to let that paradigm unchallenged within you, or to allow that paradigm to take a place within you and start dominating and start dictating your choices and your moves and your movements. That would be Satanism. That would be Satanism. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Satanism is to follow Satan paradigm, in which is to believe I am better than him. That's why we find that part of, or one pillar of the Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam work with people was always to redefine things and to shift the paradigm, to bring back the prophetic paradigm. And he will teach them who is the loser for you, who is the poor one for you, who is the muflis amongst you, what do you call bankrupt in your paradigm. And they will tell people by default, they will embrace the materialist paradigm, the satanist paradigm. By default, they will be saying, well, the bankrupt is the person who does not have dirham or dinar, is the one who doesn't have money. And the Prophet ﷺ tells them, may God nourish his light and keep protecting his legacy and our connection to it. He says, the bankrupt in my dictionary, in my paradigm, is the one who would do much prayers, spend much money, quote unquote, for the sake of God, do lots of good deeds, and then he comes to God, in front of God, and he will be with other kind of deeds. He ate, he took the money of this person, he spoke ill of that person, and he committed injustice, abused that person. So you will have to pay back that person, and pay back that person, and pay back that person, and pay back that person, until all his good deeds will disappear. And he will be bankrupt. May God protect us from that bankruptcy. And the companions, they continued after that, teaching people the right paradigm. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before he said, "La yadkhul man fi qalbihi dharratun min kibr." Don't think. First of all, don't think that arrogance is about behavior. Don't think arrogance is about an external behavior. Arrogance is something internal, first of all. That hadith, that teaching that Ustadha Shehnaz shared with us is very, very important. First of all, it's telling you that arrogance is an investment. Arrogance is an investment. It's vesting yourself interiorly. Is wearing something, is a bitana. That's literally investment. The vest that you wear inside, the clothing that you put inside, the inside clothing, inside your heart. And that's when you vest yourself in something. When you pouring yourself, vest is also to vest is to pour. Basically, pouring yourself. Pouring, not burying, that's for cats. Pouring. Pouring yourself. Cats, when they are purring, they are actually investing. They're pouring themselves into much compassion, but that's something else. And you are actually pouring yourself, pouring your energy into that belief. In Arabic, it's called sarira. Sarira. It's called bitana. It's called sarira. The Prophet ﷺ in a hadith, he says, من لبس ليلى محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أسر سريرة ألبسه الله رداءها. The one who keeps something inside, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will end up clothing him with the cloth of that thing before he dies. The one who will invest himself in something, the one who will dress himself with the quality inside, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will end up manifesting that, will end up giving the order to that interior quality to manifest on his behavior before he dies. But we have to think that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us that arrogance is before all an interior clothing. It is a sarira. It is a way of living. It is a way of seeing things. It's not a behavior. Behavior is a secondary effect. To look down on people, to yell at people, to act in a way or another. It's a secondary effect. But arrogance is a way of looking at things. It is a paradigm. It is a paradigm. And that's why he's telling us, لا يدخل جنة من في قلبه مثقال ذرة. Be careful. An atom, a seed of arrogance will be enough to destroy that piece, and to cut you in pieces. One seed. To allow one seed, because that's how it is. That's how it is. Because when you go one step in the wrong direction, when you go one step in the wrong paradigm, you will end up continuing the journey all the way to the end. It's about direction. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran is talking about the najdain, فهديناه النجدين, two directions. Whether عبدا شكورا or كنود جحود. نسأل الله العفو والعافية. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, in this continuing this legacy of shifting the paradigms and helping people to remember. In a time himself, he was a teacher, and we know that Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar was very scrupulous. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar was very exacting. He was very focused on details of the Sunnah. He would drink exactly, he would follow the prophetic Sunnah, the prophetic way of doing things, in a way that made some of his students think that the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is to do things the way he used to do things. Then Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar felt the need to remind his students, and he told them, "At-taqwa, do you know what is taqwa?" And they started giving him definitions. Some of them, they said, taqwa is to basically pray the whole night. The other one said, taqwa is basically to give all your money for the sake of God. The other one, he said, taqwa is to force yourself into something. The other one, and they gave these definitions of taqwa. And then he waited for them to finish, and then he told them, just know that taqwa is when you enter, is when you, أَلَّا تَظُنَّنَّ أَنَّكَ خَيْرٌ مِنْ أَحَدٍ. Taqwa is when you get to the state that you do not think that anyone, that you are better than anyone. How to say it in good English? That's it. Taqwa is to get to that state of being, state of mind, state of the soul. That state of mind, it's about thinking, it's about paradigm, it's about dhamma. That you do not think yourself better than anyone. And this is Abdullah ibn Umar talking. Because Abdullah ibn Umar, as a teacher, as an engineer of Islamic personality, as a man who was entrusted with the prophetic heritage and legacy, was smart enough and was conscious enough of the danger and of the risk and of the confusion that his way, his method of transmitting the prophetic teaching could lead to. Are you following me? The role of any teacher is to put nuances in his teaching and to be aware, what am I reaching? Not only what I am teaching. What am I reaching? Not only what am I preaching. What's going on in the hearts and the minds of people I am teaching? The majority of teachers today, they don't think of the well-being of the people they are talking to. And they are not aware of their role. That they are actually playing with the hearts and minds of people they are listening to, who are listening to them. And as a consequence of that, they are playing, they are shaping their personalities in a way or another. They will be responsible for these personalities. We find many teachers today, their defense when you tell them, well, you caused these youth to do what they are doing. No. We never told them to go and slaughter people. You don't need to tell them to go and slaughter people. All what you need is to teach them religion in a way that will make them judgmental beings, uncompassionate beings. And it does not take much today to build uncompassionate and judgmental personalities. All what it takes is that you teach people religion and do not tell them, do not be judgmental. By default, if all what you are talking about is what to do, all what you are advising people, all what you are teaching people is action, 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 by default, you are creating a wrong competition between them and you are making them invested into the wrong field. If you do not keep reminding them and shifting the paradigm again and again, because we said it in the beginning, the satanic paradigm will be installed by default. It's what, we have that inclination. If we don't keep working on shifting that paradigm, reminding ourselves, I'm not better than anyone, I'm not better than anyone, I'm not better than anyone, I'm not better than anyone. The raw self within you, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls in the Quran, al-nafs al-ammara, bisu. In the spiritual journey we call it the raw self. The self in the tabrut, in the raw state. The undeveloped self. The self, the undeveloped self. The closed self. The self that did not blossom. And if you understand, so this flower is blossomed, now it sees us. Before blossoming, it was closed to the world around. only saw its own self. So that's the nafs al-ammara bisu. We can call the satanic self, the undeveloped self, the raw self. The self that sees only itself. The self that sees only itself. Or the self that is obsessed with itself. Or the narcissistic self. Spiritually speaking. The self-adoring, the self-worshipping self. You know it very well, huh? It is within yourself. And that potential, at least it is a potential. It is more than that. It shows up. So that self, what we call an-nafs al-ammara bisu, it is the self that edged God out. It is the self that edges God out. E-G-O, ego. And that's ego. Ego is a paradigm. Ego is not an entity within you. Ego is a paradigm. Ego is edging God out. And when you edge God out, God, who is God? Al-Haq. God is Al-Haq, the truth, the absolute truth. And in order for you to claim any existence outside of the Haq, you have just to deny. Yeah? You must deny that Haq. And if you deny the Haq, you are in illusion. Ego is that mirror. When yourself looks at itself, it will keep worshipping itself and applauding itself and admiring itself. That's the ego. The illusion of grandeur. Delusion of grandeur. It will lead to self-obsession. So the self-obsessed self, or the raw self, or the undeveloped self, it has a mantra, it has a dhikr. What is it saying? أنا خير منه, أنا خير منه, أنا خير منه. I am better than everyone. I am better than everyone. I am better than everyone. Constantly, that voice within you, the undeveloped, the primitive part, the undeveloped part within you, the undeveloped self within you. Even if you are developed, even if you started blossoming, some parts of you, in you, did not blossom yet. They are still saying that. We need to be aware of that satanic voice within us. We need to be conscious of that. We need to be conscious of that voice. When we say hearing leads to healing, hearing does not only mean hearing good advice, the advice that you listen to from Ustadha Shehnaz. Hearing also means hearing the ugly voice. My precious. My precious. You know? Even these things start moving. The Schmiegel within you. You know Schmiegel? They gave him a German name. I don't know.
It's a German Schmiegel. Sounds German to us.
It sounds Alhamdulillah. So the Schmiegel within you, right? My precious. The Schmiegel within you. Oh yeah, I don't think anyone doesn't know the movie. Anyway, that voice within you that is always obsessed with its own ring and all what it's thinking of, it's totally invested, poured, yeah? The poor guy, totally poured into that self-claim, self-obsession, self-serving. No big cause. All his life was wasted looking for one ring. He doesn't care about any other life around him. That's egoism and egotism. And that's arrogance, if you think about it. You think that your individual project is bigger than anything else. For you, you only see that. So that voice within you is saying, I am better than everyone, but also, you know what? It is saying something even more dangerous. That voice within us is telling us, La ilaha illa ana. I am God. I am God. I am my own God. I am my own God. That's why you have to remind that voice within you that only God is God. You are not God. Only God is God. You are not God. That's why the people of spirituality, they told us that when you say La ilaha illallah, only God, it means, literally, La ilaha illallah. How do they translate it? There is no God but God. The meaning, the way that raw self in you, the undeveloped self in you receives it, you are not God, only God is God. Because that's what it needs to hear, to listen. You are not God, only God is God. And God is the medic, God is the judge, God is the superior. You are not God, only God is God. We need to keep reminding our raw, our primitive, our childish, and developed self within us that only God is God, we are not God. We were talking about the trust in the hands of teachers of religion. They need to be aware of this soul, of this tendency. It's not only a tendency, it is a default state. It is a default state. You have to be aware of that voice, of that satanic voice inside your student. You cannot just teach him and throw him into the wrong battlefield, the wrong competition, telling him, go pray the night, do this, do this, do this. And that's what we are teaching kids in the Islamic schools today. Seriously, think about it. Who memorizes more? Who does more? We just modernized the Islam and we made it into a competition on who does more. Even some Sufi groups today, they do that, unfortunately. And the art of tasawwuf or Sufism as a school, it's an art of tasawwuf. It was meant to be. It was meant to be all about purifying the soul. And divorcing the paradigm of Satan. Satan is paradigm. It was meant to be. But many Sufi schools today, they became about, I am better. Who is more illuminated? Who is more? We need to be careful about that. All of this we will talk about Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar as a man of amana, as a man of trust. And he was a teacher not only to his students, but he was a teacher to teachers who will come after him. You know, they need to be aware of the abuse, of the excess that their teachings could lead to. And all teachings could lead to that. Even the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Any teaching, even the purest, the best teaching, the Quran, the teaching of God, it has the potential to mislead. A sacred text needs a sacred heart. Otherwise, a sacred text taken out of its context could be used as a pretext to justify the worst of crimes. Sacred heart, purified heart from arrogance, from the satanic paradigm. That's what we need. So he told them, he told his students, my students, and we know that the school of Abdullah ibn Umar, it's all about doing, follow the detail of the detail of the detail, and by default, absolutely. And we know it for a fact that many of the students of Abdullah ibn Umar started becoming very judgmental of other people around. So he told them, listen, you know what is taqwa? After teaching them لا فضل لا فرق بين عربي وأعجمي إلا بالتقوى. There is no difference between black and white, or Arab and non-Arab, or male or female. The only difference between people, or the only reference, or the only criteria that people will be evaluated with is taqwa, usually translated to God-fearness, better translated to God-consciousness, or consciousness. Consciousness of your mission and vision that you are, and who you are truly, or who you truly are. That is taqwa. And seeking, and what is your goal truly, what you should be invested in truly, that is taqwa. Being conscious of who you truly are and what is your mission, where you should be invested, where you should put your energy. So he told them, is when you think that there is no one worse than you, and you are not better than anyone. These are people who understood the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abdullah ibn Umar, he was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day, and he is actually telling us this story that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting one day, and people came to him, and they started talking about someone. One of their friends, one of their brothers. So-and-so is so good, he does this, he spends all the night praying, he memorizes the Quran, he teaches us everything about you, about God. And they kept really talking about the person a lot. And you could imagine Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with his compassionate eye was hoping for that description to be true, praying for that description to be true, wishing for that to be true, absolutely. And that's the first reaction of a man of God when a person is praised to them. We wish that's the case. We hope, we pray for that. Absolutely. We'll be so happy if that's the case. But when the man entered the masjid, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam turned his face, and his face became red. And he had tears in his eyes. And he said, لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. And he waited until only that man and the two people who were praising him were left. And in another narration, he waited until only that man was left. And only maybe one of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those who were always with him taking notes, were with him. And he spoke to the man. He told him with a compassionate eye, invited the man to a moment of truth. He told him, what were you telling yourself when you entered the room? He said, nothing, Ya Rasulullah. I was just saying, I was busying my time with the dua of entering the masjid. Bismillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, wa li ababa rahmatik, something like that. He said, by Allah, what were you saying when you enter the masjid. And again, the man, the paradigm, his focus was on this tongue, on this voice. He said, by Allah, Ya Rasulullah, I was praising God. I was saying the prayer of entering the masjid. And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam knew that this man is totally distanced, totally unaware of the inner voice. He told him, I'm actually talking about that inner voice within you. That tongue that you have in your heart. Were not you telling yourself that you are better than all of these people who came before you? And that man, now shaken by a moment of truth and word of truth and invitation to the truth, coming from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and told him, Ya Rasulullah, indeed, I was totally unaware of that voice, but now when I think about it, yes, oh yes, I was. And you know what, Ya Rasulullah, I was living all my life like that. It's not only when I enter the masjid, when I think about it, that chapter, that paradigm has been always there. I was competing with everyone, and I thought that I reached the peak, I reached the top, because I did everything I was supposed to do. And then Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam invited him to shift that paradigm, and in a moment of tawbah, a moment of atonement, the moment of going back to God, the man corrected his paradigm and started again. You have to think really about this. Think really about this. And that's looking to arrogance or looking to problems with a compassionate eye. Purification of the soul is not fighting the self. Correcting the sickness of the society is not fighting the sick people. Self-awareness is not self-flogging. Self-awareness or self-consciousness is not self-flogging. It's not guilt or guilt complex. It's not a guilt complex. It's not self-flogging. No. You do not fight yourself, but you raise yourself. We said that it is the raw part of you, it is the undeveloped self. We need to raise the level. We need to invite ourselves to grow. You know? It's a growth. It's a journey of growth that we are invited to. And that's what Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is inviting us to. Actually, the word tazkiyah in Arabic means both. It means purification and it means growing. It means grow too. It means growing. We say zaka al-mal, the money. Zaka, it means the money became more. It's like raba wa zakat. It means increase. That's why the zakat is called zakat. Because it has two results. It makes your money more. ما نقص مال من صدقة. It puts barakah in your money and makes your money, materially speaking, increase. But also it purifies you. It purifies your money and purifies your heart. So zakah in Arabic means two things. Means to increase and means also to purify. And that's the tazkiyah. It is self-development. It is self-development. So Rasulullah when we read in the Quran that his role was لِيُزَكِّيهِمْ, he came there, he came with a self-development strategy. A godly one. A pure one. Not one that came from philosophers or psychologists or man-made. Man-made? Not man-made. It's a homemade. Home. You know E.T.? E.T. phones home. Actually, it does like this, right? Home. Homes. Right? I mean, don't sell Spielberg short. Don't sell him short. You have to understand him. That movie is about God. That whole movie is about God and being with God. You see? Remember, E.T. came from heaven. And he has a heart. It has flower in it. And he came with a flower. Life. And then, right? We need homemade paradigm, not man-made paradigm. Homemade paradigm. God-made paradigm. God-made strategy. God-made strategy to purify, to develop himself. Everyone today are talking about self-development, 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 and there is lots of good. There is lots of khayr. There is lots of fa'idah. There is lots of benefit that one could find in these books. And unfortunately, Muslims today are not invested in that. Unfortunately, Muslims today became just consumers in that art. It is so sad when you think about it, that those people, Muslims, are meant to be the ummah in the service of a humanity and entrusted with the amana, the trust of self-development, tazkiyah, providing the best model and helping people to get better and find better version of themselves. Now Muslims are actually the most disorganized people and the most primitive, spiritually speaking, people. Primitive, raw. You go to messages, you go to centers, it's all primitive. Egos. Seriously. Raw selves, undeveloped. Childish. Childish fights in the mosques of Muslims today. It's childish fight. Who made the adhan? Childish fight. How could you lead the salat and in my presence? Childish fight, come on. Childish fight. Even less than that. How couldn't you, why you did not mention my name in the dua of khutbah? Seriously. Childish. Childish. When you say childish, undeveloped, raw. Undeveloped. With a compassionate eye. That's why we call it, I do not call it the evil self. You understand? Usually it is translated the self inciting or inviting to evil. We retranslated it to the raw self, the primitive, the undeveloped self, in order for us to look at it as the child within us that needs to grow. Imam Busayri, one of these engineers, he says, وَالنَّفْسُ كَالطِّفْلِ إِن تُهْمِلْهُ شَبَّ عَلَى حُبِّ الرَّضَاعِ وَإِن تَفْطِمْ مِنْ فَطِمِ. And if you want to work, invest yourself in this self-development, know that the self is like the child. So there is a journey of growth. There is a journey of growth. You know that the child is the most dangerous thing. It's not innocent. It's dangerous. They give money to child, give anyone, child. I mean, people today husbands today, why we do have this rate of divorce today? Most of the cases because males today, they do not grow. They are still children. And females now, they do not grow as well. And then we have children giving birth to children. and you have children getting married, giving birth to children, and then it's all about أنا خير منه, أنا خير منهم. And that's the voice that we hear from children. What is it? I am better than everyone. I am better than everyone. It's mine. I am better than him. I am better than him. Childish. Childish. Undeveloped. Raw. Raw personalities. Undeveloped personalities. We said there is lots of good that we may find in these books of self-development, but the true art of self-development is what the Prophet of God, may the peace and blessings and the light of God keep nourishing his peace, blessings, and light, empowering his legacy and our connection to it. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But we need to go and find it. We need to go and find it back. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us and you the tawfiq. Sorry for taking this long. Ustadha Shehnaz, if you have something to add, or we open the questions and then we open, let us open for questions and answers, and Ustadha Shehnaz will be answering. Tafadhal. Bismillah. You are not terrorized or intimidated. Yalla, Bismillah. This one will travel there? Yeah. Yeah, can travel. Bismillah. Go ahead. Both the people of the camera.
Thank you. Shukran. Thank you very much for both of you. I have two very short questions. One is, what's the difference between kibriya, arrogance, and the izza? Is izza something also
Beautiful
we
question.
need or not? And also, if arrogance is something to kind of move away from, is the opposite of arrogance something we should go towards? So
Yes.
should we be
Cultivating.
the Arabic word that comes to mind is dul. So should we be in this kind of dul state of mind or not? So you have your opinion on that. Thank you.
Very, very beautiful question. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. It will lead to some practical things. So, Izzah literally means unreachable state. To be unreachable. Al-Aziz, Azza. Azza comes from the root Azza or Azaza. It means to become out of reach. Out of reach. Beyond reach. So we say someone is في عزة ومنعة من قومه. That person is protected by his people, so he is beyond the reach of his enemy, so he's Aziz. Untouchable by his enemies. One of the names of God is Al-Aziz. No one could harm him. No one could, actually, his Aziz also is beyond the imagination of, beyond the reach, the unreachable, basically. Now, Kibriya comes from the root Kabara or Kabura. It means to become big. To become big and great. Both of them, they could be synonymous. And they could be used in a negative way, context, and they could actually be used in a positive context. Both of them. For example, we have this hadith about takabbur. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, in the meaning, التكبر على المتكبر عبادة. Takabbur, with people of takabbur, is an act of worship. It's good, it's ibadah. I won't say it's an act of worship. What would be ibadah? What would be good translation for ibadah? Is seeking God. is walking in the path of God. It's not against God. And you have the other verse in the Quran with the word Izzah and Dhillah. Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam والذين معه أشداء على الكفار رحماء بينهم. And in another verse you have فسوف يأتي الله بقوم يحبهم ويحبونه أذلة على المؤمنين أعزة على الكافرين. Or أعزة على الكافرين أذلة على المؤمنين. So what do we understand? What is أشداء? What's أعزة? And what is تكبر على المتكبرين? Maybe you can translate this in English. Yeah, I will ask. Okay. Bismillah. So we have this teaching, this prophetic teaching, telling us التكبر على المتكبر عبادة. Could it be translated that translated in the wrong way?
Being arrogant towards those who are arrogant is in alignment with God's will, or God's wish.
That's how they are translating it. Being arrogant with arrogant people, towards arrogant people is an act of worship. Humiliating people who have arrogance is an act of worship. And you find today people are practicing it in a way, in a very, very strange way. In a very strange way. They'll be so arrogant and impolite. And they tell you, التكبر على المتكبر عبادة. What would be the meaning? What would be the takabbur, the form of the takabbur that Rasulullah is inviting us to? Again, if you go back to what we were talking about, kabura means what? To become? The child, يكبر الولد. So when I talk to that child, if he's Tunisian, I will tell him, for example, شو تحب تقول كيف تكبر? What do you want to become when you become? When you become big. Can I say that? When you grow up. So the form of takabbur and the essence of takabbur that Rasulullah is talking about here is to be mature. Be a bigger person. Be more mature. In Tunisia, when two people there fighting in childish way, we go to one of them, كبر عقلك. اكبر. يكون أقل منك. يكون خير منه. Be the bigger person. Be the adult. That's how I understand it. To be aligned with the prophetic teaching. التكبر على المتكبر is to be more mature, to not fall into his game. Because takabbur, arrogance, is childishness. Take the high road. Take the high road. Transcend. Rise above. That is takabbur على المتكبر. That would be takabbur على المتكبر. Rising above could sometimes take the form of stopping his excess, the excess of that mutakabbir. But in the same way, you stop the excess of child. Not falling into his level. Same when we read the verse in the Quran, two verses, they are very similar. One of them is describing Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ, Muhammad, the messenger of God, and those who are with him, أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُم. تراهم ركعا سجدا يبتغون فضلا من الله ورضوانا سيماهم في وجوههم من اثر السجود ذلك مثلهم في التوراه مثلهم في الانجيل كزرع ناخذ شطره فزرع فزرع استوى على السوق يعجب زراعه يغضب من الكفار. Translated the wrong way. Bismillah.
Muhammad, the Prophet of God, and those who are with him are severe with the people who are not Muslim, with the infidels, if you want to be really wrong about your translation. And severe and tough with the infidels, and kind and gentle and compassionate towards fellow believers.
So basically, Muhammad Rasulullah and those who are with him are schizophrenic. They have two personalities. They have two personalities. God protect us. So that's, with that understanding, they have two personalities. They are kind with their own people, so they are cultish. This is the cultish behavior. If you are from my cult, you have access to my kindness and you have the card of membership. You have the card of membership. To my cult, I will, I'm part of the Lions or Freemason or whatever, I will treat you nicely. You are part of my group. Or if you are not part of my group, I will treat you severe. Seriously, could that be the will of God? The Mufassirin since the beginning, they translated ashidda to, translated now in the good way, Bismillah.
So the correct way would be to say that Muhammad, the Apostle of God, and those who are with him stand impermeable to the strategies of those who deny God and who wish to call to other than God, to turn people away from God, and they are open and permeable to that which is beautiful and to all and everyone who recognize God.
So it is about Shidda huna is resistance. Resisting, they resist the strategies of those who deny God, of those who want to hide the truth, of those who do not want the truth to appear, including their own self, including their own selves. They are resisting. This is what we call resistance. Shidda huna means resistance, and that's actually the meaning of shaddada. It's not severe. It is to stand strong, to not let the plans, to not let the schemes of these deniers, of these fighters against God, reach you and penetrate through your thoughts, your paradigms, your ideas, your personality, etc. That's the shidda. And that's the same meaning for the other verse that you spoke about, al-izzah, izzat al-mu'min, فَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Or the other verse talking أَعِزَّةٌ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ أَذِلَّةٌ عَلى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَعِزَّةٌ عَلى الْكَافِرِينَ. And that's actually the meaning of izzah. Same thing. أَعِزَّةٌ عَلى الْكَافِرِينَ, they are beyond the reach. That means their mentality, their feelings, their emotions, their hearts, their personalities are beyond the reach of the plans of those who are fighting against God. The deniers of God's supremacy on the human, over the human. The deniers of prophetic paradigm supremacy over man-made paradigm. Their personality is well shaped by God and by the Prophet of God. So it is a'izza al-kafirin. So they are beyond the reach. Even if these deniers, they take their homes, even if they turn them into slaves, they can take the body, but the heart, never. They can take the land, but the heart, the soul, and the heart, never, because it belongs to God alone. And that's the meaning of a'izza al-kafirin. It doesn't mean violent or arrogant. Now talking about izzah and dhillah, The same way that we misunderstand the word Izza, and we think that Izza takes that form of being. We misunderstand the word Dhilla, and we think that Dhilla is about humiliating oneself. There is a difference between being humble and humiliating oneself. There is a big difference between being humble and humiliating oneself. Big difference. We need to walk in the path, as you said, in order for us to not walk in the path of kibr, of arrogance. We need to walk in the path of humility. Cultivating a humility. Becoming humble. What is a humility? It's awareness of where we came from. We came from humus, the soil. Mud. But scientific term for that is what? Scientific. You don't have humus, something like that? Not humus. 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 Scientifically, humus. That's the name for earth. Humus. And that's why we are humans. Because we were created from a humus. You understand? A human is Adam. Humans. Why, from where the word human came? It came from a humus. Human means made from a humus. Made from mud. Made from earth. So you need, if you are made from earth, you need to be down to earth. You are made from earth and you are going to go back to earth. And that's a humility. The humility is to be aware that كلكم من آدم وآدم من تراب. That we are all from Adam and Adam is from humans. That's why we are humans. That's a humility. It's different than humiliating oneself. Actually, the Muslim, the humble one, does never humiliate oneself. Because the true humiliation of oneself is childishness. Is to act as an immature, undeveloped person. Rasulullah is telling us the day of unveiling. You know what is the day of unveiling? What is the day of unveiling? Day of judgment. When everyone, even those who do not have judgment today, will have judgment. The day of unveiling of the truth. The day things will manifest to the eye, to the external eye, in the same way, in a form that the internal eye will recognize. That's the day of judgment. I will repeat it. In the day, truths, in the day, things, the truths, realities, realities. In the day, realities will manifest to the external vision in a way the internal vision recognizes it in the same way. Because it is the day the external vision will be melted into the internal vision. They will become one. The external vision that will be recreated, because will be recreated, will have physical form that day, according to the majority of Muslim scholars. It's a recreation. It will be physical. There will be physical space and called mahshar, and will have physical bodies and new bodies, new form, will be recreated in a new form, but will be recreated in a different shape, in a different form. The form will be recreated in that day will be translucent to the internal form that we have, to our akhlaq. Will be recreated in the form of our qualities, will be recreated in a form that is transparent to our inner realities. Some people will be created in a form of sibah, wolves. Some people will be recreated into the form of etc., etc. And you can, that's how we read. So, you understand? Because today when I look at you, we look the same. Huh? But if we have an unveiled person, or a person who can see through the hearts, huh? You know, he will see maybe a green light there, blue light there, dark light there, something according to the aura, according to what you have inside you. You will have an aura around you according to what you have inside you. The Prophet ﷺ spoke about that. He said, "Al-mu'min yara bi nurillah, ittaqu farasat al-mu'min." Be careful that the believer, the true believer, the people of God, they can actually pierce through, they can actually see what is in your heart, because it will manifest to them. Why? Because their exterior vision is so loyal to their inner vision, it became actually in the service of their inner vision. But the day of judgment, the day of unveiling, everyone will be able to see that truth. In that day, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is telling us that al-mutakabbirun, arrogant people will be resurrected in the shape of what? Guess. So we just said that in that day, people will be resurrected, recreated in a form that is fidel, that is loyal, that is transparent, that is aligned, that translates very well, that matches very well with their inner reality. We said that, for example, gossipers, Rasulullah ﷺ told us that people who gossip, people who backbite, will be resurrected in the shape of hyenas. Hyena. In the shape of hyena with bloody mouth. It's imagination, but because that's the inner reality. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا? Do you really want to be eating the flesh of your brother dead? Of your dead brother? You understand why it is hyena? Only hyenas that eat dead. Lion? Never. Wolves? Never. Only hyenas they eat. And vultures. Scavengers. God protect us. So, guess in what shape arrogant people will be resurrected. If you do not know the teaching. Guess. We said arrogant people, right? In what shape? Go ahead. Guess. I will give you some time. Just guess. In what shape? It's imagination, right? This is all, it's to speak to our imagination, so we are allowed to imagine. It's teaching. It's not, it's not the form that matters, it's what comes to it. So, guess. Guess. Huh? Yeah. Give them some time to think. Connect to what we learned. Connect to what we learned. In which form? They will be resurrected. Arrogant people. Those who feel superior to others. Huh?
Mosquito.
Ah, he got it. Mosquito, what do you say? Huh?
As a child.
Child. Mosquito. What else? Yeah. So you got it. You got it. It's something like that. Very small thing. Rasulullah said they will be resurrected in the shape of ants. In the shape of small ants. يَدُوسُهُمُ النَّاسُ بِأَقْدَامِهِمْ. people will be crashing them. People will be stepping on them. And if we are hasty, we will just understand it's vengeance. Because they were crashing people in the dunya, then people will be crashing them, stepping over them in the akhirah. Because they were people, but that's not the meaning. We are talking about the day of judgment. We are not talking about the reckoning. We are not talking about the hell yet. We are talking about the reality. So it's not about vengeance. So what is it? It's about unveiling the inner reality. Because the inner reality of arrogant people is what? Is the smallness of the self. صغر النفس حقارة النفس ايش؟ Pettiness. Because only people who are petty will look down on other people. That's why they're reflected into that shape. Very small things that people will actually step into. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and you. So you have another question, inshallah. Another comment. Bismillah. Yeah, this is still there with the glasses.
Yeah, can we just ask questions after each other, or do you want to answer them separately?
Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for your talk and lecture. And my question was, you mentioned how you should not fight the self. It's not a battle. You should kind of raise it, and not, and not have this guilt complex. And I can really say, out of my own experience, I always have this guilt thing, and I'm so angry all the time when I can't just stop feeling a certain feeling or something. So how do you do this? How do you what's the right way to kind of raise yourself? And in a practical way, that you can give us some tips, and thank you.
Yeah, another question.
Thank you. So my question is about balance, because you spoke about how we should either be arrogant and put ourselves on a very high pedestal, but also not be hard on ourselves and hurt ourselves and think that this needs to be humble. And I think for a lot of people, it's very hard for us today to find a balanced approach. Either we think about ourselves very lowly and very negatively, or we fall into arrogance. And that then translates to maybe our spiritual or religious view of ourselves. So if we have a very bad view of our character, it might obstruct us to see ourselves as worthy of God's love, and also in a very bad, religiously also in a bad way, like I'm a bad Muslim, I don't deserve to be loved by God, even though I rationally know that it's true, but I can't believe it. Or we might be very arrogant in our religious view of ourselves, like I'm better religiously than others. So how can we reach balance in that, because I'm not sure what's the source, but like we learn that God is to us as we see Him, or how we think of Him. So if we are aware that we have a very negative view of how God sees us, it makes it very difficult to believe that, either to have a balanced approach. How should we think of God?
Great. So this is it sounds like folks, it is a journey class, so we have the solution as class folks.
Those are really profound questions and very central questions. So, first of all, as Shaykh Hamdi said, he touched on this topic that, number one, we have to remember that this is not the day of judgment right now. We're not in the world of judgment. We're not in the era of judgment. That is to come. And we're right now in the era, in the period of time of rahmah. And if we recognize that we are children, we're starting at a point of being children who need to grow, who need to be nurtured, who have different stages that we're going through, then it makes a lot of sense to understand that we are in need of rahmah, we are in need of that compassionate eye from ourselves to ourselves, from God towards us, and with one another. Right? And rahmah is characterized by the Prophet ﷺ as coming from God towards the human being and being best understood when one looks at how a mother interacts with her child. So rahmah is a central concept here in this entire discussion. When you're talking about how you look at yourself and how you deal with yourself and how you raise yourself, as in your words, rahmah has to be there. We can call it self-love in English, or self-compassion, self-care. All of these are aspects of that. And it's as Shaykh Hamdi is reminding me, it's the nourishing and the nurturing power. And it's extremely important to know that we're not talking about, as Shaykh Hamdi said, we're not talking about fighting the self, denigrating the self, destroying the self, killing the nafs. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about anger towards that self any more than you have a right to be angry with a small child. That's something that we find unacceptable. If a child is expressing something that is negative or that kind of behavior that we don't want them to continue, anger is not the way to deal with a small child. They're not deserving of that, and you won't help that child to actually emerge out of that negative behavior. So it's important to be able to look at yourself like that when you make mistakes, and even when you're having a tantrum. Like a child has a tantrum and throws himself on the floor and gives up and just can't even talk to the child. Look at how good parents parent in that situation. Right? They don't abandon that child. They don't match that state of anger with their own state of anger. They operate in a way that calms that child. They reassure that child. They bring that child back into a state where the conversation can actually continue, or a healthy interaction can be established once again. You have to bring that child back into an ability to hear you again. And the nafs is the same thing, or the ego or the self is the same thing. You have to treat it with that same compassion. And often, actually, what leads to extremism is a broken sense of self. Having not been nurtured, even in the physical realm, having not been nurtured spiritually, emotionally, and even physically. And we can look at that a lot of the human delinquency that we find has roots in how somebody was raised and their life experience. And that also helps us to have compassion, because so often perpetrators of harm are simply repeating what was done to them in one form or another. So that also is something to think about on a wider scale as a community. What's going on with us? What's going on in the way that we raise our children? Right? What messages are we sending? And we need to sometimes reparent ourselves, or find someone who can be that nurturing figure for us. I'm talking in very practical terms, to reestablish a healthy sense of self, because you cannot start to engage in this tazkiyah that we're talking about, this purification, if the raw material is kind of already polluted or denigrated or hard to even get a hold of because it's so traumatized. Right? Think about if you want to train a dog, which is a healthy thing to do. Right? Dogs, when you should be able to train them so that you can have a healthy relationship with the dog, and when you say sit, it sits, and it's happy to sit. It's not abusive to do that. It needs to be done. But if a dog is coming from a background where it was mistreated, you cannot engage in that training. You cannot receive those messages except as a trigger that reminds it of that pain. So many of us are in that state. We have to recognize that, or find a way to discover that about ourselves and start from a place of, okay, I need to just deal with my own self-hatred and my discomfort with who I am. My discomfort with who I am. And I think that I'm so happy that you asked that, because I think it's very important for us to recognize that we're in a very interesting era when, you can see it, especially in expressions that individuals are sharing online, and I think online is a very good place to look at how people are seeking to heal themselves and engage in self-development. You find so many people, so many women especially, speaking about the idea of self-care and self-love. And sometimes other people make fun of that, but I think it's a very important concept, and I think it's a true manifestation of the love of the Prophet ﷺ towards women, in fact, that we're finally recognizing that need for self-worth, and for recognizing that in ourselves, and for being willing to appreciate me as me, and how God created me, and to take care of myself. It's something that's very, very important. And, we often talk about Islam as being, Islam gave women their rights. Are we really going to stay at that level of just talking about rights? Is that, really? Like other people are talking about, I need to find my self-worth, I need to learn to care for myself, and we're just stuck on rights still.
What kind of rights? So they're not very delightful.
Yeah, so our dads aren't burying us alive anymore, so
have
great.
to be happy with that.
But this whole discourse of rights, Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave women, are giving women dignity, and the ability to recognize our self-worth, and the ability to feel honored. And this whole process, and this whole, I really believe this whole movement around self-care is the beginning of that coming back into alignment. As women, and women are leaders, and women are nurturers of humanity in so many ways, that this is what I see that as being, this whole discourse around self-care. And it's so important, as Shaykh Hamdi said, that we have self-development, and self-care has to be part of that. And it's so important that we understand what is true self-care, because to caring comes when you're able to recognize the need that exists, right? And to fulfill it. That's what caring is, right? So caring, self-care in that case, really has to be able to recognize what is the need that I have, and how should it be fulfilled. So I think that it's important for Muslims to get involved in that discussion, and not let self-care sort of just become something where, I take a photo of my makeup and how I put it on, and then I put it on Instagram, my face with makeup on it, and call that self-care. I'm not making fun of that. I'm really not. What I'm trying to say is that, does that actually address the need that needed to be cared for? I know we can feel temporarily good by doing something like that. Putting on makeup, it's enjoyable for many people to do that, and then putting up a nice photo, you might feel better about yourself. But the issue I have with that is that it doesn't address the original need. That is just a temporary fix to make you feel better in that moment, and then it's gone. True care is a care that truly addresses the need, and you get better. And you find yourself after a time of offering yourself that kind of care, that you're well in that area now, and you actually don't even need to pay that much attention to it anymore. You've healed. It's gone. That wound, that emptiness, it's gone. That's what self-care should lead to. So it's very important to not break apart the self in the way that we raise our children, in the way that we offer advice to youth, to one another, and the way that we speak to ourselves. And sometimes our anger at ourselves is coming out of this very same illness of wanting ourselves to be perfect and looking at ourselves without invoking the rahmah of God, without being involved with God. You cannot ever engage in self-purification or self-development or even self-care without being in a relationship with God. and without Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, without doing it in the name, in the presence, with the actual power of the one who cares for us, our Rabb, the carer, the caregiving, the compassionate, the nurturing. That's the meaning of Rabb. Rabb is the same word that we use for parent. In Arabic, Rabb is the parent, the one who raises that child. And that's the name of God. It's how we refer to God. And how God wants us to refer to Him. He reminds us that He is the one who is parenting us. He is the one who is raising us, caring for us. So what I'm trying to say is that when you engage with God in that self-care, or in looking at your mistakes, in being honest about, yeah, you know, when I walked into this room or when I talk to people, I like to make sure that there's at least one thing that I'm better at than them, or I'm prettier than them, or I'm skinnier than her, or I have a workout routine and she doesn't. That I can recognize that I have that, but I don't attempt to deal with that alone. Dealing with it alone, you will be overwhelmed and you will become defeated very easily. We don't deal with these things through our sheer willpower. To do so will only increase, in the end, your tendency towards arrogance. Because if you are allowed by God to actually eliminate that way of talking to yourself inside, what can happen is that you'll say, look how good I am at this. Now I'm good at tazkiyah. Forget about fitness and all that. I got rid of all those arrogant points, but now I'm really good at tazkiyah. That's what I'm good at. So Allah does not actually bless that sheer will. He teaches us, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I have no power to achieve this good, and no ability to resist this evil or this wrong tendency that I have, except by God Himself. He is the only power who can actually make that happen. And once you're in that relationship with God, and He is your doctor, and the Prophet ﷺ is your advisor, and you know, better yet, you've got also better yet than just those relationships. Although those are the essence, you also have somebody in your life who is representing the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, and more than the teaching, more than just the words, more than just a lecture like this, the actual love and the care and the nurturing of the Prophet ﷺ, like a mentor who's in your life, who you can talk to about these struggles. If you have that, you will find that it's a much easier process, and it becomes actually possible to have this self-development. Without a mentor, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think it's really possible. Sometimes it becomes possible for some people when life itself becomes the mentor, but that can be very strenuous. It can be very difficult, because life can be a very tough teacher. A teacher, a living teacher, can be much more, can give you sort of fake tests in a way. Things that don't really hurt that much in order to pull you up. Just like a teacher in school. Right? When you're learning math in school, if you get it wrong, if you get the equation wrong, you're not going to actually lose money the way you would when you're older and you get the equation wrong. I was adding up some figures the other day, and I was off by a whole decimal mark. By a whole figure, like a whole place, a whole tens place. Okay? I was in the hundreds and the figure was actually in the thousands. That's how bad I am at math now. That has consequences. If I was still in grade 5 when I made that mistake, there's no consequence. There's a teacher who can say, like, here, let me show you how to do that. Yes, I'm going to give you 5 out of 10 on the quiz. That's the consequence, but let me now show you how to do it right. And that's the benefit of having a mentor, is that the mistakes you make are opportunities to learn. They don't actually have lasting consequences. Right? You've got someone to carry you. And Imam al-Ghazali, who is, a foundational teacher when it comes to these topics like arrogance and how to help the heart and how to fix the problems and how to heal the diseases, all of this stuff that we're talking about, he actually says that every single person needs a mentor. You need a person in your life who you can take as your confidant in this path to God, who you can talk to about what you're suffering from, and who can point out to you gently where you need to work on yourself, where you need to pay attention, and who can raise you up as a spiritual parent. A spiritual parent helping you grow from being that undeveloped child into a mature being who can handle these situations in life. So, alhamdulillah, it's very important. I'll just finish by saying it's so important to remind yourself for that reason, for the reason of not being harsh on yourself and not being arrogant or harsh towards others, that we are not in the realm of judgment at all. This is not a place of judgment. And God is not in a mode of judge right now. God manifests in different qualities of His to us, as you well know. And He's not judging right now. That's for Judgment Day. So don't rush towards that. Don't be hasty and bring it on before it's time. This is a time for rahmah, and a time of knowing that anybody, this is where you can understand actually this teaching of, I'm not better than anyone. It's not out of putting yourself down, but it's out of saying God's rahmah is there. Anybody can be picked up in a moment. Who am I to limit that? This is a celebration of God. It's not a putting down of yourself. When you say, I'm not better than anyone, that should be a joyful drink that you drink. How wonderful to know that anybody here could be just a prince or princess of the finest qualities. What a wonderful thing. What a wonderful, why would you be upset about saying something like that? It's liberating. Alhamdulillah. There are good people. There are people who are better than me. How beautiful. Yeah, there's this prayer that is said in Tunisia. Oh Allah, put us with people who are better than us. Make us fall into the laps of people who are better than us. Let us find ourselves amongst those who are better than us. How wonderful. What could you ask? What more could you ask for? I mean, that is actually the recipe to you getting better. Imagine if you're the best and everybody else is not that great, you're going to be stuck. How will you even know what to look for? How will you even have somebody to pull you up? Don't you want a friend who can pull you up? And we know that from the beautiful teachings of the Prophet. I don't think that anybody here is sad to know that when we pray a congregational prayer, when we pray Salat and Jama'ah, I don't think any of you would feel bad when you hear this beautiful teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, that your prayer, your individual prayer will be counted as if it's the prayer of the very best person amongst you. It will be counted in the same way that the prayer of the person with the greatest concentration and awareness of God has in the group that you're praying in. I think all of us breathe a sigh of relief when we hear that. Alhamdulillah, because I know I don't have this perfect prayer, but thank God there are people. I know there's someone in this Jama'ah who's going to lift me up. That's how you should feel every time you pray. And alhamdulillah, I'm sure that there are people, I'm sure everybody else is doing okay. Yes, my mind wanders, but I'm with this group. Alhamdulillah. That's a blessing. It's a blessing to be amongst people who are better than you. So we should receive that with joy. And that is exactly what you were saying, Tina, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will interact with you, will manifest to you in the way that you choose to see Him. And that is what we call husn al-dhan. Having a good opinion, having high hopes, having beautiful expectations of everybody around you. That I'm sure these people are wonderful people. I'm sure these people have things that I don't have, that are just shimmering about them. And one practical thing you can do that will, sort of nurture the good in you, but also allow you to celebrate the good in other people, is that when you see somebody, and especially when you see somebody, making a mistake or not good at something that you're good at, and you find yourself starting to judge them, like, why is she dressed like that? Or why is she talking like that? Or why is she so bold in that way? Or why did she say that rude thing online? How could she post a photo like that? When you start to find yourself doing that, a beautiful thing that you can do is to say, oh Allah, I'm sure that she has qualities that I don't have. I'm sure that today we were talking, Shaykh Hamdi was talking about how all of life is about the stances that you take. When a situation comes before you, how do you choose? What is the stance that you take? What is the position you take with regard to that situation? Your parent is getting older, for example. Your friend is in need and you're busy that day. Your relative has fallen sick and you have a choice to go on your vacation or send that money to them. These are all positions you're going to take. These are all stances you're going to have to take in these life situations. When you look at somebody else and you want to judge her, instead tell yourself, I am sure she has taken stances that I could never take. I'm sure there are situations that have occurred to her in which she has passed with flying colors. in ways that I could never imagine. I'm sure, for example, that she's much better to her parents than I am. Perhaps she has a relative who's very difficult to deal with, and she's been sweet to that relative, whereas if I were in her position, I would have given up and been rude to that person by now, or cut them off. Things like that. Remind yourself that people have stories that you have no idea of. So when you look at that person, you want to be like, why is that person like that? Tell yourself, make a dua, and say, Ya Allah, grant me the good qualities that you granted to her, and grant her the good qualities that you granted to me. Because you too have good qualities. And that way, you're recognizing the good that you have, and you're also recognizing that she also has things you may not have seen. And you're also not becoming morally relativist, where you're going to say, oh, everything's fine. That's not what we're saying. People do make mistakes. Everything is not all the same. But you're allowing yourself to look at that with compassion. You're not saying, oh yeah, it's fine if people break all these kinds of moral codes that we have, or mistreat other people. We're all like that. We're all losers anyway. Whatever, it's okay. No, you're not saying that. You're saying, okay, I recognize this to me looks like something that's not okay, but I'm sure this person has qualities that I never even could dream of. And if I'm better at the thing that she's suffering from right now, I ask you, God, that you would give her what you gave me, that ability to do well in that thing, that ability to do it beautifully. But that's something that, inshallah, we can do as a practical activity, as a practical implementation.
So the brother, let us have one brother.
Ja. Das ist dann die letzte Frage.
Thank you very much for all the presentation tonight. So I have a question. Given that today we are living in a world of measure, we have ratings everywhere, every time, because of high technologies, because of institutions publishing ratings, and you are constantly remember how good or how bad we are. How can we cope with this and either avoiding arrogance or lack of self-esteem? Find a balance. Thank you.
Let us take another one. Yeah. It will be, yeah.
My question is a little bit off topic. I would like to ask, because you mentioned Imam al-Ghazali, how can we deal, especially as women, with the sections about women, like his writings about women, and how to understand these writings, because I know many people...
Another time we'll talk about that, inshallah. It is off topic. Let us have the sister here.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Jazakumullah khair for being here. I just wanted to ask, how would you explain self-confidence in an Islamic view, or from an Islamic view? Jazakumullah khair.
They are related. So these two questions are very related. Alhamdulillah. I will start actually with the question to not be harsh of Kawthar. So we have to understand that every scholar is the person of his context. That anyone who is born in a time, he will be limited, and that's also, actually it's not off topic, that's also a way to protect us from arrogance, and anyone, even the best of intellects, so even Imam Ghazali himself, if you think about it, even Imam Ghazali himself, when think about it, he's a philosopher of his time, most intelligent person, etc. Still, he's not above his context, still he can commit some mistakes. The pure and absolute and perfect intellect does not exist. That's God, perfect intellect. And the prophets of God are intellects. The inheritors of the prophets of God are not always, they are good, they are very good, but sometimes they have biases according to the education that they got or the frame, the limit. You see that even with the Greek philosophers. Read what Plato was saying about women himself. So this is a kind of an answer. This is one answer, and this answer I like it here in this context because it protects us from arrogance. Because me here talking and about shifting paradigms, and I may fall into the arrogance that here I'm the intellect, I'm above my context, I'm transcending everything. While no, I'm still, when I read Imam Ghazali and see that, I won't say failure, when I see that that error, it's an error. I say, you see what, you know what, even the work I'm doing now, maybe I'm not aware of my errors now, but anything we do is subject, can be improved. Anything we do, anything we say can be improved at a certain time. So that's the first question. That's the second question that Kausar has said. How do we understand what Ghazali is saying about women? The other answer would be he was talking to the people of his time, but you know, maybe he himself was thinking in that way as well. I don't find it strange. It doesn't make him less of an intellect. You understand? If he's talking in that way, he's limited like any other human being. I'm sorry I cannot open my eyes. I don't know what happened in my left eye. So the first question and the third question are actually the same question. Self-esteem and self-confidence. I will let Ustadha Shehnaz answer that. I need to go wash my face. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the question was about self-esteem and what is the balance. I think that you're asking about a balance between having esteem for yourself and versus having arrogance.
The question was more, so given that today, we have these ratings on Google, we have reviews, so we are living in a world of measure compared to any other time before. And so we are constantly remembering our value. And the fact is more how to deal with this intensity of information and how to find the balance between self-esteem and arrogance, so how to feel self-fulfilled and humble.
Yeah, I mean, this world in which we're living, where everything is about ratings and reviews, as you said, and giving it how many stars out of 5 and all of that stuff, I think that it speaks to the fact that this is a logical conclusion, if you like, of a material mindset, material paradigm, which is about consumption of the other, rather than truly valuing the other. And I think that it's about consuming a certain experience rather than seeing the whole picture. Right? If you think about, being asked to rate a restaurant that you went to, first of all, again, it's empowering that judging part of us. It's empowering that part that loves to analyze, and it's empowering that part that loves to, as you said, measure, but according to what measure? According to material, and according to the quantity, usually, of what was experienced. Because even when we talk about quality of a material experience, we're still talking about quantity with respect to non-material things such as the intention behind that experience, the intention for which you went, the intention put forth by the people who are organizing that activity. And so it's really important to actually have a complete shift in our paradigm in order to resist the tyranny of that quantitative measurement and valuing, and to make sure that we don't look at ourselves in that way. We need to have a complete shift where we really go back to the spirituality and the spiritual teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, which were never about how much are you doing. In fact, where he literally spoke against that. He literally gave examples of how it's not about how much you do. It's not about how much you do. It's about the state, the quality, and your internal state. Right? So we have a very well-known hadith about prophetic teaching about a woman who, was, Sayyidah Aisha said about her that she, prays all night and she fasts all the time and she has all these good deeds and she was listing all of these good actions, but her neighbors, experience harm from her. And the Prophet said that person is walking a path to perdition, walking a path to hell. Right? Very clear teaching that it's not about what you do, it's not about how many out of 10 you got, 10 days of fasting, or how many items you were able to tick off on a list, right? And so I think we really have to take some time to actually reflect on that, because we live in a world in which Islam is being taught in that way. Islam is also being taught as a system of rating, right? Rating yourself, accumulating certain actions, consuming certain experiences, and we teach, as Shaykh Hamdi said, we teach our children that way. How many surahs do you know? And we talk to ourselves that way. How many days of tahajjud have I done? How many extra prayers have I prayed? I was talking to a friend once who was having difficulty in her relationship with her spouse, and we've been talking about it, and just talking about it from a perspective of self-development, that what are the qualities that you need to develop in order to deal with the situation and benefit from it and actually grow through it. So you need things like patience, you need things like having a sense of forgiveness towards the other person, you need a sense of compassion. Those are all things that are only to your own benefit to learn and to learn to practice. And here you are with a real life situation that's forcing you to do that. If you can see it that way, you can actually turn it into gold. And one day after that she moved away, and we spoke on the phone, and I asked her, so how are you doing? How's your ibadah? How's your life with God? And she said, alhamdulillah, I read 20 pages of Quran today. She completely sort of forgot that entire thing that we've been talking about. She didn't see that self-development piece as being what it means to have ibadah, as being that relationship with God. For her, it was how much Quran have I read. Do you understand what I'm saying? There was a disconnect between this spiritual growth, things that are almost immeasurable, really. Because can you measure patience? Can you tell yourself, I'm 10 out of 10 on patience? These are immeasurable things. These are immaterial. They're immaterial in the sense that they don't have a quantity. And you can never know if you're really at the 100% mark, if you fully downloaded that application. It's an ongoing process. I can't tell myself, now I've downloaded patience. I'm done, I got it now, I can just click on it when I need it again. You'll find another situation where you don't have it. You're looking for it and it's not there. Because it's an invitation to grow more, to recognize that you're never at insan al-kamil until you really finish the entire journey. You're never perfect, you never got it all. So it's a paradigm shift, and it's just really resisting that desire. I mean, personally, I don't even engage in that review stuff and that rating stuff. I won't even do it on WhatsApp asking how good the phone conversation was. And I know that people who work in IT might be like, you're not helping the cause, you need to help, we need to know how to improve our apps, but I don't want to do that for my own self. I don't want to engage in that. I don't want to start to measure my experiences based on these things that you can so cheaply qualify or quantify. I don't believe that that's actually fair, and especially somebody who now is sort of, you know, we have a project, we have 2 projects in Ottawa and Montreal in Canada that are cafes. They're non-profit cafes, so they're kind of like social cafes for people to come, and it's a safe space for people to hang out and learn from each other and get to know each other and all of that. And now I'm on the other side of ratings, right? And I know how easy it can be to rate something and to miss the bigger picture, which is a very profound thing to experience. That, wow, this person rated this so poorly and completely forgot this, you know, the fullness of the experience. So it's important to really, I think, resist some of that and only engage in that when you know that it's truly going to be of benefit to you and the other person who's receiving that rating, or to other people who will read that, you know, in a material sense. If you're asked to rate a restaurant or to rate an experience, sometimes it's positive feedback, sometimes it's level, sometimes it's really empty, you know, idle talk. It's a waste, right? And you're missing the bigger picture. So I think that's really important, to not judge yourself and to recognize you're not in a position to rate anything about yourself. How do you know? How can you ever know? How can you ever look at yourself objectively in order to rate yourself? You can't even look at other things objectively, let alone yourself.
Well, the world is giving you a mark.
I'm sorry?
The world is giving you a mark. So
the world is giving you a mark.
You've got the weight, you've got the value. You present something, you present some numbers. So yes, the world is giving you a mark. It's out of the mark at school, it's the money you make, you make your friends, you know. So there is always a way to measure that thing. And today, with all the systems, it's not only Westerns, it's all of us which is constantly weighted.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really just to repeat what he was saying, that, you know, it's not necessarily you who's giving yourself a mark or giving others a mark, it's the world. You know, the world is judging you based on how many friends you have or how much money you make and all of that. But again, I think it's really once you have to liberate yourself from that situation and be able to transcend. And the only way to transcend is to have a relationship with God, where you recognize that what matters is how I'm seen by God. It's really the only way to escape from that very shallow rating system, and then to be able to sort of laugh about it and to look at it and not really be affected by it. I mean, really, when you think about it, these identities on which we're being rated, they're passing roles. I mean, you can lose those things any moment. So you know, when I'm in the masjid, where we have a masjid in Ottawa, a lot of people will ask, you know, what do you do? And I used to work for the government, and when I would give that answer, I would get a high rating. It's like a great thing for a Muslim to have reached that level of working for the government. And I would laugh even in that situation because I knew the reality of that. I knew that it's not all that. It's not everything it's cracked up to be. And I think we need to come to that place of being like, okay, so what? Like, really? You think I'm so great because I sit in a cubicle all day and do, you know, pen pushing? Like, we need to be able to rise above and sort of question those things and then be liberated from that. And if we're not willing to stand and say, you know what, yeah, it's not really the be-all, end-all. I'm glad that you are happy for me, but it's not really what makes me truly happy, having this job or having this many friends or having this many followers or having this salary. Then I think that if we're not willing to do that, it will be done for us eventually. Because nobody can maintain those ratings forever. There are things that always happen that actually push you to recognize that that was actually not a firm ground to build my self-identity on. And those things were not worthy of staking my claim on or making my name on or finding my happiness in. And that's a very basic message of spirituality and Islam, that these are temporary things and they can be taken any moment, or you yourself can fail in them, and you cannot build your sense of self around those things, because you will be forever in a precarious position, in a tenuous position. You won't have a firm foothold. The only identity that's really going to allow you to feel your own self-worth and your value is that identity of being Abdullah and Amatullah, being the devotee and the slave and the servant of God and the child of God. So that's what I would say about that. That's where your sense of, and then when you feel very good about that and you feel that you have a really good, you have a high worth in the eyes of God, that can never lead to arrogance because we're talking about God. It's impossible if it's genuine. It's impossible for you to actually feel arrogant about that because the whole thing is about the one who's great and who's just bestowing upon you his love and care and tawfiq and enabling grace. And you see all of that is coming from him. So it doesn't even belong to you, essentially. You're recognizing that I am just being spoiled by this loving, doting parent, this spiritual, this creator, this Rabb. I'm a recipient of his doting care and his kindness and his fadl and his help. I couldn't be here without him. I couldn't have done any of this without him. And I'm not better than anyone else. I'm just being looked upon with this kind of love and care. So I don't know if that answers your question. But again, even for the question about self-confidence, that's where it comes from. It has to come from God or it's not going to be genuine. It's not going to be something you can rely on. If you're constantly looking to external sources to find your sense of self-worth, you will always be a beggar. And you'll always be at the mercy of other people's attention, whether they give it to you or they don't give it to you. And you cannot live that way because people are not able to provide that for you all the time. They just can't. They're human beings. And one day you'll please them, and the next day you won't please them. One day as they say in English, you can't please everybody. You'll do something, some people will applaud you, other people will hate you for doing it. Right? So it's very childish to live in the eyes of others. It's something that we have to grow out of. Right? But sometimes that need for attention is coming just from basically not having gotten that in our actual physical life as children. And so it persists into adulthood, and we have to deal with that in some way. We have to get help. Break it, get therapy, and I'm really serious about that because it's not cool to still be in that state. I mean, look at people, you may think it's fine for you and you kind of go along with it, but imagine somebody who's 70 who still needs to hear from other people praise or get high ratings from other people. I mean, it's absurd. We don't want to be like that. At a certain point, we want to find a sense of peace and contentment, and I'm happy for you that you're doing well, and I also feel okay about myself. I know that I'm being looked after and loved by one who has enough love and enough ratings to pass out to everybody. There's an abundance with God, and there's always a paucity with people. Right? There's always a limited ability to truly give, infinite and limitless attention to everybody. Nobody can do that. And if I'm giving, even the process of rating means I'm deciding that one thing is better than another. I can't give equal ratings to everybody, otherwise the whole rating system has no meaning. Likewise, I can't give equal attention to everybody. There's only one who can actually provide that need that exists in everybody to feel good about themselves and to feel worth and to be applauded, if you like, to be encouraged, to be affirmed, and that's God. As long as we keep begging of that, begging each other for that, we're really, as one of the friends of God described it, can you imagine a panhandler or a beggar asking another beggar for money? It makes no sense. And we're all that panhandler, we're all that beggar standing on the street with our hat out. There's only the rich, the one who's rich, who can actually give us what we're looking for. And that's a very fundamental sort of understanding of who we are and our neediness for God, and making sure we don't direct that neediness towards other people, because we will be disappointed. We can't get it from our spouse, we cannot get it from our children, and most of people's suffering is that you're not giving me what I need, you're not giving me what I need. My husband doesn't give me what I need, my kids don't respect me after all these years, my kids don't thank me, I gave them everything, my boss doesn't appreciate me, my work doesn't give me what I deserve, they don't show me the appreciation I deserve, and on and on and on. These are the things that people complain about. And it really has just one simple solution. Deceptively simple, because sometimes it's hard to actually turn to God, but really it's turn to God, and you will get the abundance of every single thing you're looking for. You will get that full sense of, I'm beautiful, and I'm good. Yeah, and this is all from his kindness to me. And that's it. I'm just stumbling along, but it's something that, these things are easy to say and hard to do. And I would just like to end by saying that honestly, I think that really a key ingredient, as I said, one is to have a mentor, to have somebody who's able to help you along. It's not a DIY project, it's self-development, it's really not. And that's why self-help books, in the end, we laugh at them. They were very popular at one time, they still are kind of popular, but a lot of people are sort of, turned off by them. It's because you can read about how to listen better, you can read about how to have verbal judo, where you don't, react with anger to what someone says. You can read about these things, you can read an entire book and be inspired by it. And then when you actually come to implement that, you can't do it. After all that, when you get into the next argument, you're just the same as you always were. Because you can't do it alone. That's the thing about self-help. Self-help tried to give beautiful advice, but they forgot that key ingredient, which is the self-help coach, which is that coach who can help you to help yourself, and hold you accountable, and lift you up when you're failing, and remind you that you can still do it. All of those things. So a mentor is one. The second one is truly to have time alone with God, which we call khalwa in Arabic, or in the Islamic tradition, which is to have this time of tafakkur, spiritual retreats, contemplation, meditation, and it's really something that nobody's doing, basically. Muslims aren't doing it. It's just completely off the menu when it comes to being a good Muslim, as somebody said. Being a good Muslim, you have to also ask yourself, what does that look like to you? What do you believe that looks like? Right? Doing more, the one who does the most, again, we have to challenge that. So tafakkur is this thing of not doing anything. It's a time that you take regularly where you just sit in the presence of God and you reflect. But you reflect with meaningfulness. You don't reflect with this busy monkey mind. You actually calm that mind and think about three important things. And please, write them down and try to do this. We complain that we don't have, we complain that we're having to turn to yoga or mindfulness or Buddhism to get some of these things. It's there. It's there in Islam, but we don't pay attention. We don't really take it seriously. So this is the thing. If you do this, your whole life will change. It's a very transformative practice. Take some time, at least once a week, to sit alone and not do anything. It's not about doing 100 of this or that dhikr or reading 10 pages of Quran. It's not about busying yourself with these things. It's about sitting quietly and recognizing you're in the presence of God. And as I said, thinking about three things. First of all, starting with recognizing the fadl of God upon you. That is the immense blessings of God upon you. Truly reflecting on those blessings. Just silently reflecting on all the things that God has given you. And saying alhamdulillah, really, truly, for once. Really recognize, it's not me who did all that. It's not me who did all that. Number two, and you don't move to number two till you've really felt number one, truly. Not just like this robotic action, this mechanical, okay, I did it. Sometimes we do our gratitude journals that way. Just, okay, write down, I'm happy, I'm thankful for food, water, and shelter. Are you really? Have you really thought about what it means to not have water? Have you really felt, wow, I can drink this water? It's not a guarantee, and I'm not entitled to that. If God takes it one day, He can take it. Then what am I going to do? What is my degree going to do for me? What is all my smarts going to do for me? These are important things to contemplate. God invites us to contemplate in Quran. Surah Al-Mulk. That's what He's asking us. And He wants us to recite that every night. If God were to make your water undrinkable, who's going to bring you drinkable water? Who? Who can do that for you? Basic thing. So this sense of everything good that I have comes from you. And I stand in humility and gratitude towards you for that. Then you move to the stage of thinking about where are you at? What's been going on with you lately? in terms of what matters, what God sees, that is your conduct. Your internal state and the way that you behave with other people. What's been happening? For example, yeah, I've been really short of temper lately. Allow these things to come back to you. We talk about asking God for forgiveness. 90% of the things that we're doing, we don't even pause to give ourselves time to ask for forgiveness. You need this time to let those scenes from the past week come back into your mind so you can, those things you registered in your mind, but the situation passed so quickly, you went on to the next thing, or somebody called you, or you had to move on, but you recognize that, oh, I was looking down on that person. Oh, I was really kind of sharp with that person. And when you sit alone like this, quietly, without anything calling on your attention, these scenes will come back in front of you, and it's an opportunity to say, wow, I really need to work on this. I really need to ask for forgiveness. I need to ask to not be like that. That's a very important way to connect with God. And then to come to the conclusion after that, you know, if it weren't for your grace, if it weren't for, this is the third part, if it weren't for your blessings on me, all these gifts you've given me, and if it weren't for you, God, covering up all those things that I just remembered I did this past week, all these nasty things, if it weren't for those two things, where would I be? That I owe all of this to you. And that nobody can benefit me, and nobody can harm me except you. I don't need anybody else's ratings, and I'm not afraid of anybody else's harm or turning away from me, because all that I need is you. You're the only one who can actually give me these things. And when you're in that position, you are actually in a state of transcendence. You walk out on that day, and you'll find that nothing can get to you. You'll find that you have that izzah that you were talking about. You'll be untouchable, because you are recognizing that everything is but a manifestation of God's interaction with you. His covering of your faults, and His blessing you with His blessings. And that's possible. Really, when you do this exercise, you will see that these things are not just theoretical, what we're talking about. It's not just pie in the sky. You'll actually be able to experience a day where I don't care about what people say or think or do. I'm actually in a state of communion with God today. So this khalwa, please try to implement it in your life. The Prophet ﷺ said that one moment, sa'a in Arabic means any period of time. Sa'a tafakkur, this one moment of this kind of contemplation is better for you than 70 years of any other kind of worship or seeking of God. That's how powerful this is. This is self-development at its very heart. It's such a sad thing that most of us don't give it the time. It's literally about 15 minutes a week. I really pray that all of us can implement this, inshallah, and that really will feel the blessing of being Muslim and having access to this beautiful teaching. Barakallahu fikum, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Oh Allah, we ask that you would make these words meaningful and keep them in our hearts if they're good, and that you would allow these words to reach places that have never been reached in us, and that you would use these words and this experience and this night to be not just a moment for us, but a momentum that carries us closer to you, that inspires us to behave in beautiful ways in the upcoming days and months and years. Ya Allah, we ask that you would allow us to be carriers of the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ, this legacy of reaching the fullness of our spiritual potential and beauty. We ask that we would be able to look at each other and ourselves with rahmah, with a compassionate eye. Oh Allah, open that eye inside us. Ya Allah, open that eye inside us so that we can see everything and everyone with that same rahmah that your Prophet ﷺ manifests towards all the worlds. As you called him the rahmah, rahmatan lil alameen, the compassion and the love for all of humanity and all of creation. Oh Allah, we ask that we would become sincere in what we say, in our true care and concern for one another, and that we would become people who help one another up and pull each other up. I ask, Ya Allah, that you would grant each one of us mentors who guide us, who support us on this journey, and that you wouldn't leave us to our own devices. Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, Ya Allah, as you granted other people who we know and in our past the blessing of being raised up spiritually to a position of transcendence. We recognize that you are the same one who did that. You still have that capacity. You still are giving out that gift. Ya Allah, we ask that tonight you would bless every one of us with that gift, and everyone that we love with that gift. We recognize that that gift is hard to measure, it's hard to understand in material terms, but we know that we believe that you are capable of giving us things beyond our imagination, beyond our capacity to comprehend. We stand before you in humility, we stand before you in need of spiritual insight and growth, and we trust that you will grant us that. For truly you have said that anybody who takes even one step towards you is met by you coming all the way towards him or her. Ya Allah, we ask that we would take this step towards you tonight in our hearts. Bless us, guide us, make us a light for humanity. Bless the city of Berlin. Bless this country of Germany. Bless this entire world. Allow us to see again the beauty of the apostle whom you sent to all of humanity, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and allow our humility to grow the more that we love and honor and revere him and see him as the great human being. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad Sayyidina Mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ila sharaf an-nabiy al-Fatiha.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us, when we contemplate on how great is His favor upon us, hiding our mistakes and giving us these bounties. When we say Alhamdulillah for that, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the power to open our hearts actually to admire Him and love Him and forget ourselves in that. Because when we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all the problems will get solved. And may we open up to the love of God. And when we love God, we forget ourselves. And then to be the esteem of God. Everything will be about Him. Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. Really, when you think about His beauty, there is nothing more beautiful. There is nothing more beautiful. There is nothing more beautiful. And all of these exercises, knowing the self, let us not forget that knowing the self is but a bridge to know God. And knowing the self is but a bridge to know God. All of these things of self-purification, self-development, is to remove obstacles from our path in order for us to be able to open our eye to the beauty of God and really love God. And that's happiness. May we become all, may we discover that love, and may we become all lovers of God. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We love you for the sake of God. Thank you for coming, and thank you for being patient. Tomorrow is Monday, we're working. Tomorrow's Tuesday, oh Tuesday. Oh no. Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you.